I'm sure you've seen the new AI generated video, not just video, but even AI generated short films that are now starting to emerge on places like YouTube when Google released its prompted AI video release. It's kind of scary. Let's look at this actually for a second. I want to show it to you. All of this is AI generated.
I want no bullshit. You stay on my 6 at all times.
This is all prompted video. Look at this.
Stay sharp. These fuckers are nasty and dangerous.
Okay, so some of it still looks like a video game. Some of it still looks a little bit fake, but it's gotten tremendously better since even just honestly a few months ago, let alone kind of like last fall, right? But look at this. Look at the lighting.
Where are the bodies?
This is truly nuts. So this is pretty nuts. It's pretty insane. And I want to show this to you because everyone's reacting to this and they're like, well, filmmaking's dead. But if you've been paying attention, this has been coming for a while. Tyler Perry, he has a big studio in Atlanta. He was going to, I think, do a $400 million expansion of his studio. And he saw what Sora video generation could do. And so he put the brakes on it. He said, I'm not going to spend money because this AI video thing's going to change the entire industry. And I don't want to waste all this money on something that's going to be irrelevant in the next few years. That's significant. So if you're a aspiring filmmaker, if you're someone who's like, hey, I've always loved making movies. Maybe you're a teenager, maybe you're in your mid-20s, maybe you're in your 30s or 40s, and you haven't quite achieved the level of success or been able to work on the projects you still want to work on and aspire to working on. But you're now seeing AI come in and you're like, oh, the industry's about to tank. It feels so hopeless. Like, this has been my dream. What am I supposed to do now? Well, I want to take this video to analyze what's going on in AI, to look at it through a realistic lens, and also encourage you to say, don't quit, because I want to lay out what I am seeing as being the filmmaking future. And it's probably not what you're thinking. It's probably going to be different from what you've come to expect the filmmaking world looking like, and also what you think the filmmaking world's going to become, because it's not as dire as you think. And that's very important to hear right now, because it's very discouraging seeing stuff like this being released in just a couple days, right? It's pretty nuts. So let's jump into this video I want to show you. It was an interview on the Glenn Beck program, and Zachary Levi, he's the actor who's done a bunch of stuff, and he talked about filmmaking and AI. And there's a good bit of this I want to watch together. I'm going to give my thoughts as we go through. And then afterwards, I want to give you not just my prediction, but a very solid, like evidence-based opinion of where the filmmaking field is going with all of this AI technology being injected into it and how fundamentally it's changing. But we need to hear people like Zachary Levi and people like Glenn Beck, who works in media, talk about AI so we can get a very clear ingredient perspective of the big picture.
If what we have right now, like, for example, 2 years ago, AI was generating images, humans had 6 fingers. And so people said, this is schlock. Look at this. This is never going to get good. It can't even get the amount of fingers right on people's hands. I said, yeah, right now it can't. Right now it cannot do that. But 6 months later it did. 6 months after that you had video, and now you've got video with audio that is almost indiscernible, as you've been seeing with these new examples. It's almost indiscernible. Now, people say, yeah, but I can still tell. I go, yeah, right now you can. But 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, we're going to be living in a world. No, probably not even that long. No. And so people have got to wake up. And so for people in my industry, yes, we should all be very, very concerned. But everyone should be very concerned. But AI is really the kind of, I think, most galvanizing force in all of this, because if we don't do something about it, if we don't hold the line, if we don't build the ark, which is really kind of what I've always felt on my life. I felt this kind of Noah calling on my life, that God's like, hey, listen, a flood is coming. It's not going to be water. It's going to be something entirely different. And that is this AI. And if you can build the ark, then you can at least save as many of those jobs 2 by 2 as you can. But if you don't build the ark, then the flood just wipes everything out.
And we're going to listen to some more because there's even more information we have to take in here. But the main point up to this point is that you have to understand that what you're thinking AI can do right now, it's going to be able to do a lot more. What you think that the limitations of AI are going to be today, it's not going to actually be the limitations of the future. For me personally, like a year ago, I was like, well, I don't know if AI is going to be able to edit together, like without any human interaction, a very compelling shot list or shot timeline to create a story visually. Like, I think it's not going to be smart enough to actually puzzle piece something together that makes sense, that doesn't feel convoluted. And I'm starting to actually pull back and say, well, hey, I think it actually will, like, because all it has to do is look at a bunch of examples, craft a story, and then orient all of these generations in a specific timeline. And I think it could probably actually do that. And so there's so much that AI is going to be able to do in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 5 years. Like, we can't even comprehend what 5 years is going to look like right now, which is honestly so wild that we're living right now in this world with this emerging technology. But it's going to be able to do so much more than you can possibly imagine. And if you think a certain area of your work is safe, it truly is not. It absolutely truly is not, because there's going to be something that could either render you almost useless or render you very unnecessary, in the process of AI-assisted services. Let's keep going.
I don't think that we can't embrace AI. We must embrace AI, but we must do it in as ethical a way as possible and be mindful of what is it doing, how is it disrupting, and how is it displacing jobs, because that's the only thing that we can do. Now, when it comes to entertainment, there's going to be all kinds of ways that we can implement AI to make the process more efficient, more enjoyable, and I have every intention of utilizing AI like that. I don't vilify it, writ large, but I think that we must be very mindful about how we implement it in still holding on to human creativity. Human art and entertainment is at the brink. But I also believe,
And this is like the narrative that all the filmmakers, all the creatives are really holding on to right now, to saying like, hey, human creativity is still valued in culture, right? Like, authentic human creativity and storytelling is still highly valued. And I think there's some truth to that. But on the same level, like, that is a little bit too hopeful for my comfort. That's a little bit too hopeful for me to place all my eggs in that basket. I need to see it from a different angle. And I'm going to get into that once we finish listening to this. But that idea of just authentic human creativity and storytelling, it's a good argument, but it's not a fully fleshed out argument and idea that I think is very helpful for an aspiring filmmaker. So let's keep going.
Not only is it necessary, to prevent, let's say, the extinction of human art and entertainment, but there's also a market opportunity in this, because similar to vinyl, for example, once upon a time, we all listened to vinyl records. That's what it was. And then the cassette tape came out, and everyone said, oh, well, I don't need vinyl anymore. I'm going to go with these little, rectangular plastic, cassette tapes, and I'm going to do that. Great. And then the CD came out. Even more people left vinyl, and then streaming, and now even more people have left vinyl. But the people that held on, the people that said, you know what, yes, everyone is going to zig, but I'm going to zag. I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to keep printing vinyl because I believe that there's something special about it, unique about it. And sure enough, vinyl sales have gone up because people are looking for something that's more human, more tangible, more slightly imperfect, with a little crackle, a little, whatever.
So Zach, because I like you, I've been on this for a long time, and I have put a lot of thought into, because my job is, at stake. Everybody's job is at stake. And I've always felt, well, there's something special about humans, that we have a different sense to us. But I don't know if you heard, there was a study done of, I think, 100,000 songs, and they did, what's called hook testing to see which tested the best. I think it was 7 out of the top 10 were AI. And people didn't know it was AI. 7 out of the top 10. We used to say AI couldn't, art can never be done. So what is it that you think is going to be unique quickly? I mean, I believe that there is going to be a huge draw back to handmade, individual. You know, when machines came out and you had factories and they started producing shirts, nobody wanted a homemade shirt. Nobody wanted a handmade shirt. They wanted one that was from the factory. But now handmade is the best of the best. So there's going to be a renaissance, if you will, of handmade and human-made stuff. But what is it right now that will bridge this gap that humans can do that you don't think AI can do?
Well, I think that, obviously live performance, that's going to be huge, right? So people in this rebound effect of people saying, it just flooded with ubiquitous AI content, a lot of people are going to say, I want something authentic, right? And authenticity is the most important. In fact, there's been studies done where, just from an energy level, like, as humans, we have we produce an energy when we have various emotions, right? And there's lower energy if you're sad, depressed, angry, and there's higher energies when you're joyful and happy and you feel love. But there's an energy even higher than love, as they've tested, and it's authenticity. That is the highest energetic level that we can all reach.
I'm going to stop it there because I have a lot I want to share with you all. But authenticity is the launch pad here. So with all of these ideas, with all of these concepts, they gave one really good example there, Zachary Levi did, where he said live performances. So like sports and concerts, stuff of that nature, that is going to remain similar, but it is going to become a lot more streamlined, right? It's going to be a lot more accurate to have a robotic arm following the ball around the field than someone behind a camera trying to follow it. So there's going to be a shrinking of the job market in those areas, but it is still going to be actually, cameras being used and production taking place. But when it comes to filmmaking, when it comes to the craft of being a filmmaker or being a cinematographer, what can you actually do? You hear all these concepts of, be authentic. Like people are going to want authenticity. People are going to want like good human creative storytelling. But what does all that mean practically? Well, let's break it down. Let's start with the big one. So Hollywood, the mainstream. You have, the theater experience. You have the streamers. You have most of all the money when it comes to, filmmaking and storytelling on screen is in this industry. So where is all that going? Well, I think it's going to actually be split up into two categories. It's going to be kind of split up in between the blockbusters and kind of what I'm going to call like the hipster category. The hipster category is literally going to be certain creative people, certain filmmakers are going to shoot on film. They're going to shoot on, old digital. They're going to be shooting in analog. They're going to be telling stories in creative ways, the way we kind of see now with some of the biggest directors like Christopher Nolan and Jordan Peele and Denis Villeneuve. And all these people that are very creative in Hollywood right now, the directors, the filmmakers that we know their name because they're doing really interesting work. That's going to kind of be the hipster category, and there's going to be a niche found for those individuals. But that also means it's probably going to be a smaller niche because the mainstream is going to be very AI focused. It's going to be the blockbuster thing. Now that's in context of inside of Hollywood. Hollywood cannot force like a big money-making hipster category to work on the way that it is currently structured as far as a business. So what it's going to do is it's going to use streamers and find all the niche audiences. So like Netflix, they're doing a lot less high-cost productions and a lot more genre productions. So they're going to keep costs low as they can to serve a smaller audience of very specific niche audiences. And that's where a lot of these hipster categories are going to spring up out of. However, everything in the job market's going to downsize because costs are going to be lower, production costs are going to have to go a lot lower, and even the blockbusters, they're going to rely a lot on AI. So what they do use that's authentic, that's like real actors and real storytellers putting these stories together, like all of the animation, all the special effects, all of the assistance with the writing, everything is going to be downsized to work off a skeleton budget because they have AI to make it move through a lot cheaper. And they kind of need that because we see the market for really high earning blockbusters get smaller and smaller and smaller. So they have to make production costs come down. So basically the industry as a whole is going to say whether you're a blockbuster or whether you're in like these hipster subgenre categories, everything cost-wise is going to go down and the jobs are going to go down. which means there's going to be more competition. So if you're an aspiring filmmaker, it's not very hopeful at this point in that category. The next is the indie market. The indie market's always struggled. Like, no indie filmmaker's ever been super successful making money doing indie films. And there are certain exceptions, I would say, but for the most part, you might be in the indie market yourself. Maybe you've made a film or two and threw it up on YouTube or your Patreon or something, but basically you make no money, and that's just the truth. Well, the problem with the indie market is that sort of the indie market's going to evolve and be taken over by fake indie filmmakers. So a lot of the indie filmmakers are going to say, hey, I can now tell my stories in a really low effort way using generative AI, using prompting, and I can actually get all these stories that's in my head out on screen, and I can put it up on YouTube, and I'll get a little bit of viewership there, and maybe I'll even be able to pitch some of my ideas and win some festivals or something like that using AI, and that's going to be just fine for some people because that's really all they care about. And then there's going to be a huge wave of people who are not filmmakers who come into this field, and they're going to be like, you know, professional creative prompters. They're not filmmakers. They've never touched a camera in their life. They're just going to prompt their way through a story that they have in their head. And so the competition, once again, is going to go super high, but there's still not going to be any money interjected into this work. So the indie market's going to just be complete chaos for years. And now let's just quickly touch on the freelance market, like the freelance commercial market. If maybe you don't tell stories, but you do commercials, you work with small businesses, you work with medium-sized businesses, and they do, you know, their own corporate videos. Well, I could pretty much guarantee you that's going to just disappear. Once again, they're going to want to hire professional prompters who can use AI at a cheaper cost to do the same thing, because let's be honest, people who run businesses to do like their, you know, production, they didn't want to pay filmmakers or creatives anyway. They just needed someone who can actually do the work, so they have video. If they don't need cinematographers anymore to get that, that's going to disappear. They're just going to hire someone who knows how to use AI really well. This is where the hope gets brought in. And I've mentioned this on a few of my videos, but looking at it through AI, it's very important. And this is very, very important for you to hear, for you to get it down in your soul, and to take action on this. This is extremely important. I cannot stress this enough. The authentic creativity that Zachary Levi and Glenn Beck are talking about really comes down to this. And it's kind of an offshoot of the indie market, but it remains to be in the filmmaking world that you want, and that is YouTube. Hear me out. YouTube does not have a specific kind of creator anymore. YouTubers are not really a thing. What they are is it's creators. It's the creator economy. You can do anything you want. You can be any kind of creative you want. All you have to do is create video, and then you can be anything you want inside of that world. Storytellers, filmmakers fit very nicely inside of that world. But how is that different than like all the people who are going to be AI prompting and making short films? Well, it's not really about that. What it's about is that you are building an audience that authentically enjoys you, that authentically learns to come to appreciate your work and your creativity and your expression of art. That is the most valuable thing. When it says authentic, like, you can't just be a faceless filmmaker anymore. You have to actually have an audience of people. You have to have brand and name recognition, to be honest. That doesn't mean you have to be a huge business owner or be an entrepreneur. You could still just be a creative, but brand building is super important. And brand building's not new. I mean, Steven Spielberg has done it for years, since he started in the freaking 70s. He has a brand that he's built just by doing the type of stories he tells. And he's gotten a huge audience of people that's come along with him for decades. It's the same thing thing with Chris Nolan, and Denis Villeneuve is starting to find his own audience as well. However, doing that in the mainstream light is extremely difficult, pretty much impossible. What you have to do is you have to build your own audience of people who like your creativity, how you like to express your creativity. And believe it or not, that's actually going to be the pipeline up to, like Hollywood or the streamers or getting bigger paid opportunities, is because you have a built-in audience. You have a reputation. You have a recognizable brand. That's what people are looking for when they're going to invest money into your creative outlet. I mean, look at people like Tom Segura, who's the comedian, right? He's also a filmmaker, I would say. He's a filmmaker, comedian. He just recently came out with a show on Netflix called Bad Thoughts. And think what you want to think about the show, but the fact remains is that he has gotten his opportunity not just because he's done stand-up comedy on the Netflix platform, but now he's able to do a comedy show, a comedy series of just kind of short films back to back, because he has a very large built-in fan base that gave him the opportunity for Netflix to pay attention to him. We see this time and time and time again on places like Netflix, and other streamers are eventually going to do the same thing. When you have an audience, it creates the opportunity you need to fulfill your dream. Unfortunately, just being an indie filmmaker, going to festivals, and then hoping that the industry, that Hollywood, is going to just find you and pull you into their system and invest a bunch of money into your films in the future, that's just a broken model. It's just not going to work. Nobody wants to lay down any kind of money, not even serious money, any money at all, if you don't have a recognizable brand or personality. If you're brand new to the scene, you obviously aren't very trusted at that point. Nobody knows the type of films that you tell, and nobody's going to show up when they see the film get advertised to actually watch it because there's too much competition. You have to build your own audience. Unfortunately, that's the new model. You have to build your own brand. You have to build a community of people that enjoy you. And it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands or millions of people. Really, all you need to fulfill your dream of making films and getting money is 1,000 loyal followers, is 1,000 loyal, true fans. That principle remains the same. You can make a living making films, being in the indie market, but really it's being in the creator market as a filmmaker. And if you have 1,000, maybe 2, maybe a few thousand true fans of yours, then you will be unstoppable and you'll be able to do any project you really put your mind to doing. That's how you become a filmmaker in an AI-dominated world. That's how you become a filmmaker when you're young right now and you have no direction to go and AI is super scary. AI is not going to take that from you because there's truth to it. There's truth to the fact that authentic relationships with the entertainer is what people crave. It's not this idea in the sky that people might show up because you're telling an authentic story. No, people show up for their friends. And if you build an audience of people, a community that sees you as not just their entertainer, but someone they pay attention to as much as they pay attention to a friend, and you pay attention to them and interact with them in the comments and on live streams and stuff, then that is the ticket to becoming a filmmaker success. It's the only way to do it now because everything else has way too much competition already, and that competition's about to get even higher as AI just demolishes the workforce. I hope this is encouraging. I hope it actually gives you a true perspective of what's going on and actually ignites your inspiration on how you can achieve your filmmaking dream and not just let it die because AI is too scary to compete with. So before you go, I want you to leave a comment and I want you to tell me some creative ideas that you've come up with about how you are going to achieve your filmmaking dream in a world that's dominated by AI. What's your strategy? What's your plan? And what has this video given you new perspective on that helps you move forward with the type of work that you've always dreamed and loved to work on?